I never thought I would be the guy with the cheating girlfriend story. For 18 months, I believed Amanda and I had something special. I worked hard at my construction management job, saved for our future, and treated her with nothing but respect. Then came that Tuesday when I decided to surprise her by coming home early to cook dinner. Instead, I was the one surprised when I opened the door to find her laughing with her ex-boyfriend Jake on my couch. When I kicked him out, she actually said I embarrassed her. Before I tell you how I found the strength to stand up for myself that night, drop a comment letting me know where you are watching from, and hit that subscribe button if you have ever had to make a tough decision about someone you loved. I met Amanda 2 years ago at my buddy Steve's summer barbecue. She showed up with a mutual friend, and from the moment she walked into the backyard, I could not take my eyes off her. It was not just her physical beauty, though she was stunning with her long auburn hair and bright green eyes. What really drew me to her was her confidence. She worked as a marketing coordinator for a local company and spoke passionately about her career goals. Within minutes of meeting her, we were deep in conversation about everything from favorite hiking trails to our shared love of true crime documentaries. I gathered my courage at the end of the night and asked for her number. Our first date was 3 days later, a casual dinner at a local restaurant followed by a walk along the riverfront. The conversation flowed effortlessly. Amanda was intelligent, funny, and seemed genuinely interested in my life and work. By the third date, I was already falling for her. In those early months, everything seemed perfect. We spent weekends exploring new restaurants, hiking nearby trails, and attending local events. Amanda introduced me to her friends, most of whom were welcoming, though a few seemed to scrutinize me more than felt comfortable. When I asked her about it, she mentioned that some of them were still close with her ex-boyfriend Jake, whom she described as complicated but part of her past. At the time, I thought nothing of it. Everyone has a past, and I was secure enough in our relationship not to worry about an ex. Amanda occasionally mentioned Jake in passing, usually in reference to their friend group, but assured me they rarely spoke anymore. I believed her wanting to trust the woman I was falling in love with. My career in construction management kept me busy with long hours. I had started as a site supervisor 5 years earlier and worked my way up to managing multiple projects across the city. The job was demanding but rewarding, and I took pride in building something tangible with my hands and mind. Amanda seemed supportive of my career, though she would occasionally comment that I worked too much. 6 months into our relationship, we decided to move in together. It made sense financially, and we were spending most nights together anyway. Since I owned my apartment, a modern one-bedroom in a renovated building downtown, Amanda moved in with me. The transition was surprisingly smooth. She added touches to the place that made it feel more like home plants on the windowsills and colorful throw pillows on the couch. I gave her space in the closet and a drawer in the bathroom. We settled into domestic life comfortably. Looking back now, I can see the red flags that started to appear around that time. Amanda became increasingly secretive with her phone, turning it face down whenever I entered the room, or taking calls in another room. There were unexplained absences, times when she said she was with friends but was vague about details. I ignored these warning signs, chalking them up to my own insecurities or her need for personal space. What bothered me more was how some of her friends never seemed to fully accept me. There was a core group, particularly her friend Zoe, who would make subtle comments, implying I was not good enough for Amanda or that our relationship was temporary. At gatherings, they would reminisce about times before I came into the picture, often mentioning Jake in those stories with knowing glances at Amanda. Still, I trusted Amanda and believed in what we were building together. We celebrated our 1-year anniversary with a weekend trip to a cabin in the mountains. We talked about future plans, maybe getting a bigger place together, possibly a house in the suburbs in a year or two. I thought we were on the same page about where our relationship was heading. The last few months, however, had brought subtle changes. Amanda became more critical of small things, the way I loaded the dishwasher, how I folded laundry, or the time I spent watching sports on weekends. She picked fights over minor issues that would escalate quickly, then act as if nothing had happened the next day. Our physical intimacy had decreased with Amanda, often claiming to be too tired or stressed from work. Despite these issues, I remained committed to making our relationship work. When I received news of a promotion at work, my first thought was to celebrate with Amanda. I decided to surprise her by coming home early and cooking her favorite meal, grilled salmon with roasted asparagus and garlic mashed potatoes. I left work at 3 o'clock, an unusual time for me, and stopped by the grocery store to pick up ingredients. I even splurged on a bottle of expensive white wine she loved. I was excited to share my good news, and thought the surprise would reignite some of the spark that had been missing lately. I had no idea that walking through my own front door would lead to the end of everything I thought we had built together. The first thing I noticed when I approached my apartment door was music playing inside, something with a heavy bass line that Amanda rarely listened to. I figured she must have come home early from work too, maybe not feeling well. I juggled the grocery bags to find my keys, pushing the door open with my shoulder. The scene that greeted me stopped me in my tracks. Amanda was sitting on our couch, wine glass in hand, laughing at something the man beside her had said. She was dressed in a low-cut blouse I had not seen before, her hair styled more elaborately than usual for a workday. The man next to her, with his arm casually draped across the back of the couch behind her, was a stranger to me, but somehow familiar. They both looked up when the door opened, Amanda's laughter cutting off abruptly. Her eyes widened in surprise, then narrowed with what looked like annoyance. "Brian, what are you doing home so early?" Her voice had an edge to it that I had never heard directed at me before. I stood frozen in the doorway, grocery bags still in my hands, trying to process what I was seeing. My heart pounded so loudly I was sure they could hear it. A rush of adrenaline made the room seem suddenly brighter. Every detail crystal clear. "I wanted to surprise you," I managed to say, my voice sounding distant to my own ears. I set the grocery bags down on the entryway table, not taking my eyes off the man who was now sitting up straighter, a smug half-smile on his face. And then it clicked, where I had seen him before. This was Jake, Amanda's ex-boyfriend. I recognized him from photos I had glimpsed on social media, though Amanda rarely tagged him in posts. The same sharp jawline and carefully styled dark hair. The same confident posture that bordered on arrogance. "This is Jake," Amanda said, finally, her voice overly casual. "Jake, this is my boyfriend, Brian." The way she said my boyfriend felt dismissive, like an afterthought. Jake did not stand to shake my hand, or even acknowledge the awkwardness of the situation. He simply nodded, taking another sip of his wine. My wine from one of my glasses. "Nice place you got here," he said, looking around the apartment as if he was considering purchasing it. "Thanks," I replied automatically, still trying to comprehend what was happening. 2 wine glasses on the coffee table. Music I knew Amanda did not listen to. The intimate atmosphere they had created in my home. "How do you two know each other?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. Amanda rolled her eyes slightly. "I told you about Jake before. We dated for a while before you and I met." "Right," I said, moving further into the room. "And now?" "He is in our apartment because—" "We were just catching up," Amanda said quickly. "Jake was in the neighborhood for a meeting and texted to see if I wanted to grab coffee. Since I finished work early, I suggested we come here instead." Something in her explanation did not add up. The dressed-up appearance, the wine in the middle of a workday, the comfortable way Jake had settled into my space. "How often does this happen?" I asked, the question coming out more calmly than I felt. Amanda and Jake exchanged a quick glance that confirmed my suspicions before she answered. "What do you mean we are just friends, Brian? Do not make this weird. I mean, how often does Jake come over to our apartment when I am not here?" I clarified, watching their reactions carefully. Jake smirked slightly. "I have been here a few times. Amanda said you work late a lot." My stomach dropped. This was not the first time. And from the comfortable way Jake had made himself at home, it was clear this was a regular occurrence. "I think you should leave," I said to Jake, my voice firm despite the turmoil inside. Jake looked at Amanda, instead of responding to me, as if seeking permission in my own home. She shook her head slightly. "Do not be rude, Brian," she said. We are just having a drink and talking. Jake does not need to leave. I took a deep breath, trying to maintain my composure. Yes, he does. This is my apartment, and I am asking him to leave. Now. Jake leaned back, spreading his arms across my couch. Look, man, Amanda invited me here. If she wants me to stay, I am staying. Something snapped inside me at his arrogance, his complete disregard for the fact that he was in my home with my girlfriend drinking my alcohol. I am not asking anymore, I said, walking to the door and holding it open. Get out of my apartment. When Jake still made no move to leave, I crossed the room in 3 strides, grabbed his jacket from the back of the couch and thrust it at him. Now, I repeated. Finally sensing my seriousness, Jake stood up, though he took his time doing so. Amanda was glaring at me, her cheeks flushed with what appeared to be anger rather than embarrassment. You are overreacting, she hissed as Jake slowly gathered his phone and keys from the coffee table. I said nothing, simply holding the door and waiting for him to exit. As Jake passed me, he had the audacity to wink and say, "Call me later," to Amanda, loud enough for me to hear. When he was finally out the door, I closed it firmly and turned to face Amanda, who had sprung from the couch and was now standing with her arms crossed. I cannot believe you just did that, she exploded. You embarrassed me in front of him. How could you be so rude? Her words hit me like a physical blow. After finding her with her ex-boyfriend in my apartment, her concern was not about betraying my trust or disrespecting our home, but about being embarrassed in front of him. In that moment, something fundamental shifted in how I saw Amanda and our entire relationship. The silence that followed her outburst was deafening. I stood by the door, still processing her words, while she glared at me from across the room. The fact that she was more concerned with how she appeared to her ex than with how her actions had affected me spoke volumes. I embarrassed you. I finally said, my voice quiet but steady. You have your ex-boyfriend in our home, drinking our wine, making himself comfortable on our couch, and I embarrassed you by asking him to leave. You did not ask him to leave, you practically threw him out. Amanda countered. We were just catching up. You are completely overreacting. How long has this been going on? I asked, moving to the coffee table where their phones had been sitting side by side. I noticed her screen lighting up with a notification, and before she could stop me, I saw the preview of a text from Jake. That was awkward. Your place next time. Amanda lunged for her phone, but not before I saw several other message notifications from Jake with similar intimate tones. I did not need to read the full conversations to understand what had been happening. You have been talking to him. Our entire relationship, have not you? I said, the realization dawning on me. All those times you were texting and would turn your phone away. All those mysterious calls you had to take in another room. So what if we talk? Amanda shot back defensively. Jake and I have history. We are still friends. That is not a crime. Friends do not sneak around behind their partners' backs, I pointed out. Friends do not create such a comfortable little scene in someone else's home while they are at work. What else have you been lying about? Something in my tone must have made Amanda realize the severity of the situation, because her approach suddenly changed. She softened her voice and moved toward me. Look, I know how this looks, but you are making it into something it is not. Jake and I are just friends now. Yes, we talk, but that is all it is. She reached for my hand, which I pulled away. If you were home more often, I would not need his company. You are always working. The gaslighting attempt was so blatant it almost made me laugh. I had been working hard to build a future for us, while she had been entertaining her ex in our home, and somehow this was my fault. Do not try to turn this around on me, I said firmly. This is about trust, and you have broken mine. I walked to the bedroom, Amanda following closely behind, continuing to defend herself. As I opened the closet, her protests grew more frantic. What are you doing? She demanded as I pulled out a duffel bag. I want you to pack your essentials, I said calmly. Enough for a few days. You can come back for the rest of your things when I am at work. You are kicking me out. Her voice rose in disbelief. "Over this, you cannot be serious." "I have never been more serious," I replied, meeting her eyes steadily. "You invited another man into my home behind my back multiple times from what I can gather. When confronted, your concern was for his feelings, not mine. This relationship is over." The reality of the situation finally seemed to hit her. Amanda's expression changed from indignation to panic. "Brian, please, you are overreacting. I made a mistake. I admit it. But we can work through this. 18 months together has to mean something." Her eyes filled with tears that I might have once found compelling. I handed her the duffel bag. "It meant something to me, clearly not to you." As Amanda realized I was not going to back down, her tactics shifted again. She began crying in earnest, reminding me of all the good times we had shared, promising she would cut off all contact with Jake, suggesting couples therapy. I remained unmoved, helping her pack basic essentials while maintaining emotional distance. When the bag was packed, I walked her to the door. Her tears had given way to anger again. "You are going to regret this," she said, her voice cold. "No one is going to care about you the way I did." "You're right about one thing," I replied, opening the door. "No one is going to care about me the exact way you did, and that is for the best." After she left, I changed the locks that same night, calling a 24-hour locksmith who charged double for the emergency service. It was worth every penny to know my space was secure again. Alone in my apartment that night, I experienced a strange mixture of emotions. Grief for what I had thought we had, relief at discovering the truth before things went further, anger at the deception. Yet underneath it all was a surprising sense of peace, knowing I had stood up for myself and my boundaries. The days following Amanda's departure were a storm of emotions and logistics. By morning, my phone was flooded with texts from her, starting with angry accusations. "You are so controlling, I cannot believe you." Threw me out in the middle of the night, then transitioning to bargaining. "Please just talk to me, we can fix this." And finally descending into desperate apologies. "I am so sorry, I made a terrible mistake." I responded only to practical matters about when she could collect her remaining belongings, arranging for her to come while I was at work with my brother Tyler present to supervise. I had no desire to see her again or be pulled into emotional manipulation. Work became my sanctuary, my promotion, offering new challenges that demanded complete focus. My boss Mark noticed the change in me, commenting that while my work was excellent, I seemed distant. Over lunch one day, I confided in him about what had happened. "You did the right thing," he said simply. "When someone shows you who they really are, believe them the first time." Not everyone was as supportive. Amanda launched what I can only describe as a social media campaign portraying herself as the victim of an unreasonable breakup. According to her carefully crafted narrative, I had overreacted to an innocent friendship and thrown her out with nowhere to go. Some mutual friends bought into her version, sending me disappointed messages or unfriending me without discussion. Other friends stood firmly by me. Steve, whose barbecue had introduced us, called to say he had suspected Amanda maintained feelings for Jake all along but had not wanted to interfere. My longtime friend Caitlin pointed out patterns of manipulation in Amanda's behavior that I had been blind to while in the relationship. The most dramatic moment came 3 weeks after our breakup, when Amanda showed up at my workplace, unannounced, tears streaming down her face, clutching a handwritten letter. The receptionist, unaware of our situation, directed her to the conference room where I was meeting with clients. Amanda burst in, creating a scene that required me to excuse myself from the meeting. "You need to leave," I told her firmly, guiding her back to the lobby. "I will not leave until you hear me out," she insisted loud enough for my colleagues to hear. "I made a mistake, Brian. Jake means nothing to me. It is you I want to be with. Where is Jake now?" I asked, genuinely curious about what had happened to her supposed soulmate. Her hesitation told me everything I needed to know. We realized we are better as friends," she finally said. Translation: Jake had gotten what he wanted, and moved on, leaving Amanda to reconsider the stability I had offered. I almost felt sorry for her. "I wish you well, Amanda," I said sincerely. "But this conversation is over, and so are we." Security escorted her from the building, and I returned to my meeting with apologies. To my surprise, the client, an older woman with kind eyes, simply said, "That took courage, young man. Now where were we?" Over the following weeks, Amanda's attempts at reconciliation grew increasingly desperate. She sent flowers to my office, left tearful voicemails, and even enlisted her mother to call me, describing how devastated she was. Through it all, I maintained my boundaries, reminded that her primary concern that night had been her embarrassment in front of Jake, not the pain she caused me. I learned from mutual friends that Jake had indeed pursued Amanda immediately after our breakup, only to lose interest within weeks, exactly as I had suspected would happen. He had never been interested in commitment, only the thrill of taking something that belonged to someone else. My father offered the most helpful perspective during a Sunday phone call. "Son," he said, in his characteristic, straightforward manner, "some people will only value what they have lost. But that does not mean you should let them find it again." His words resonated deeply. I had no obligation to provide Amanda another opportunity to hurt me. By standing firm in my decision, I was honoring myself in a way I had failed to do while we were together. 3 months after our breakup, I began to feel like myself again. I had reclaimed my apartment, replacing furniture that held too many memories and repainting the walls. I joined a local rock climbing gym, finding both physical challenge and new friendships there. I focused on relationships I had neglected during my time with Amanda, reconnecting with college friends and spending more time with family. At a work event, I met Melissa, an architectural consultant collaborating on one of my projects. Unlike my immediate attraction to Amanda, my connection with Melissa built slowly through professional interactions and casual conversations. She was direct but kind, ambitious but ethical. When she finally agreed to have dinner with me, our conversation flowed naturally without the performance or hidden agendas I now recognized in retrospect with Amanda. 6 months after that fateful night, I received a final text from Amanda. "I hear you are seeing someone new. I hope she appreciates you more than I did. What we had was real for me, even if I did not show it right. I am sorry for hurting you." I read the message but did not respond. Some chapters are better left closed. The entire experience taught me valuable lessons about self-respect and boundaries. I learned to trust my instincts when something feels wrong, and to value actions over words. Most importantly, I discovered that walking away from someone who does not truly respect you is not a failure but an act of self-preservation. Today, I can honestly say I am grateful for that moment of clarity when Amanda revealed her true priorities. Her words, "You embarrassed me in front of him," were painful to hear, but ultimately freed me from a relationship built on deception. Sometimes the hardest decisions lead to the greatest growth. Have you ever had to choose yourself over someone who did not truly value you? Share your experience in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit the subscribe button and like this video so others facing similar situations can find it. Consider sharing with someone who might need to hear that standing up for yourself is always the right choice, even when it hurts. Thank you for listening to my story. And remember that you deserve to be with someone who is proud to have you in their life, not someone who sees you as an embarrassment.